Hello, sweet friends. Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to another episode of the Homecomings podcast. I'm your host, Evelina Olachowska, multi-passionate creative soul, brand strategist, designer, and founder of my dear design studio, Studio Domka. We're back today with episode 7, part of this beautiful series of personal branding on this season. And today we're diving into all things purpose, and I am so pumped because out of all the topics that we've touched to date in this season so far, there is nothing quite like talking about purpose that makes me feel a certain type of way. And I'll preface also by saying why I think the launch of today's episode is extra special is because it's my birthday. So 32 years around the sun, which is so wild to consider. And so I think it's extra fitting and timing to know that I'm going to be diving into my favorite topic ever on the best day ever. That is my birthday. So if you're tuning in today on Tuesday, August 6th on the launch of this episode, there's extra energy imbued in this one today, friends. So thank you for being here. And we're going to dive right in. So this word purpose, I'm sure many, if not all of us at one point or another have probably sat with ourselves and asked ourselves, what the heck is my purpose? And if you're privy to any pieces and parts of self-development or the self-help space, I feel like this is such a huge topic that is being talked upon. And basically books and podcasts and articles and all the things out there helping people to connect with this elusive purpose. What is it? What is it that they're meant to do? What is it that they're meant to be? Especially if you're finding yourself in a place where you're finding unfulfillment or there's something that just deep down in your core isn't right. You probably have sat with this question of like, what am I meant to do? Who am I meant to be? What is my reason for being in this world? And so we're going to talk high level on this whole concept of purpose, and then we're going to zoom in a little bit, or maybe I'll say a lot of bit in the context of what does purpose mean in relation or in the context of your personal brand and business. If you are an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, anyone running a personal enterprise, then this topic is going to be, it truly, I want to say, is the most important out of all the things we've touched on. Coming to know yourself, your identity, who you are. We're always going to come back to that. That is the foundation, like I mentioned at the beginning of this season. Every single thing, and I'm sure if you've been tuning into the episodes thus far, you have seen and you have recognized, even when we're talking about things like our target audience or competitors, other people in our market or industry that are doing similar things that we are, we come back to ourselves. We come back to who we are. What is it about us, our values, our gifts, our stories? How do we lean on them to position ourselves to come back into all of that? We're going to be diving even deeper today through this lens of purpose to, yes, understand ourselves deeper, but then at the end, ultimately come out with this vision, this knowing of what we're meant to do. And let me just preface and say, friends, it's not as complicated or overwhelming or insert whatever frustrating pain point that you think it is. Purpose is really meant to be something so simple. And my knock on all of the different avenues that I've personally explored when it's come to self-development and this space is it almost more often than not, in my experience at least, is it makes it off to seem this like big lofty thing. And I'm here really the intention behind all that I'm doing on this season, but I would truly want to say the intention behind so much of my work and what I do, especially when I work with clients to teach them brand strategy, to walk them through their process, is demystifying and simplifying so much of what we've been taught, because it's not meant to be so hard. It's not meant to be so convoluted. It's actually meant to be so simple and easy. And it begins with coming back to yourself. And again, I think I mentioned in last week's episode around this formula of differentiation, right? Especially if we're in an industry that feels so convoluted and, overpopulated or overwhelming, and we feel like, how are we ever going to stand apart or, insert ourselves in this space that is so just has grown to be this big monotonous thing, right? Like, how can I possibly stand out? And again, wish that I can share some sort of magical formula, like follow these exact steps, and then you're going to guarantee virality. But there's nothing like that, friends. It's really ultimately coming back to yourself and leading from that place of truth and authenticity and sharing your story, sharing your gifts, really putting yourself at the forefront. And so when it comes to this topic of purpose, it becomes imperative to not only know who you are, but come back to those parts and pieces of you to then understand what we're meant to do in this world. So, first things first, this question of what is purpose? Now, if you've tuned in to any client or guest interviews that I've shared on the show to date, specifically in the first 2 seasons, you know that I always like to end with a few closing questions whenever I interview my guests. And one of those being, what does the word purpose mean to you? And I love this question for 2 reasons. One, selfishly, because I love all things purpose. I love understanding the driver and the reasoning behind why someone is doing what they're doing. And 2, the learner that I am always wants to understand how different people view different things. And so when I ask this question, I've gotten such a beautiful breadth of different responses from every single person that I've asked. And when I look back and kind of just in hindsight, sit with and review the feedback and the responses that I've garnered from everyone I've interviewed, I can see so many correlations and similarities. And if I was to distill it into one simple thing, purpose is who you are. It's not something that you do. People think that purpose is so imbued in a career or, a job or someone's vocation. Sure, you could be a brand strategist or designer like I am, or you can be a financial advisor, or you could be a full-time mom. And a lot of people think, well, my purpose is to be a mom, or my purpose is to be a designer. This is all related to the doing action, the doing piece, the action of what you are, again, just doing. I'm not really sure how else to distill it in that simple way. It's an action. A lot of people think like, oh, it's what I have to do. And so with that, this is where a lot of hangups come around, because say you find yourself in a job or an opportunity where you associate and connect your purpose to doing financial advising, right? And you're doing that, you're riding along for 3, 4, 5 years, and you're like, okay, financial advising, you're lit up every single day. But then over time, you start losing a little bit of steam. Maybe the company that you're working for, your values start to become misaligned. Maybe there's new management that comes in and they just kind of rejigger the whole system, and you're not finding the same fulfillment and joy from what you're doing. Maybe eventually too, that initial excitement, like with a lot of things in our lives, eventually starts to fizzle down, and you're like, well, this used to be exciting, but I've been doing the same thing over and over again for so long, and it doesn't bring me that much joy. And so then you're at these divides and at this like monotonous, maybe low suck of like, well, fuck, like I thought my purpose was financial advising, so what do I do now? Enter existential life crisis here, because I have been there many times over. And it's interesting now that I have this current perspective, if I was to look back and see myself at those crossroads of when I was switching careers, which usually for me and my experiences have happened every 2 years. I'm in a job. This is, I feel like, the average of what many people probably experience, and or at least I've heard in my experience of like, stick with the job for at least 2 years because it looks great on your resume. Well, whether or not subconsciously I've latched onto that belief, or if it just so happened that my run of career show has been on a 2-year cycle, I have quite literally cycled through my different jobs and opportunities roughly around the time frame of 2 years. And so every time I was at this crossroads of switching or finding a new job, not only was I in deep frustration around what I need to do or what I should do next, but I was questioning my purpose. It's like, gosh, what am I meant to do in this world? Because if you know any bits and parts and pieces of me and my story, you know that I went to school for architecture. And so when I graduated from architecture school, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be an architect. However, I started working in the construction industry. I had that job for, again, roughly 2 years or so. Granted, I knew from the beginnings of that job that it wasn't what I ultimately wanted to do, because I had gone to school for design and I wasn't doing any design work in this construction industry or field. I was managing, I was doing project management. And while that left me with so many beautiful experiences, let me tell you, friends, I learned a thing or two about leadership in that one. Quite literally getting thrown into the fire, leading jobs that I had no idea what was going on, but no better way to learn than just literally just jumping into the fire. And so walked away from that opportunity knowing so much, but knew deep down in my core, like, I'm going to do architecture. I had associated so much of my identity and my purpose and what I felt was like my life mission to be a designer. My purpose is to design, it's to create. And in that context, I'm creating buildings, I'm designing spaces. So I left that job. I started working at an architecture firm. I think it only took maybe 6 weeks before I realized like, this is not what I want to do. There were a lot of things that just didn't sit well right with me from the very beginning. I just knew something was off. I'm like, I thought this was going to be more fulfilling. I thought this was going to be more like what school was like, where I was so creative and I flexed, again, my design skills and all that. And there was this beautiful spontaneity and freedom to create. Where, okay, we're in real life adult world, there's budgets, there's time constraints, there's certain rules and metrics, and you're also in a corporate structure, and there's all these things. So it's like, very quickly I recognized, I'm like, this is not what I want to do. But again, it took me another 2 years before I finally left that job. And I will say that point in time of my life, I had done some deep, deep soul searching. I want to say my next job searching opportunity, or the time frame that I spent searching for my next career move, lasted about 8 months. Like, I literally was sending my resume out to, I couldn't even tell you guys. It was just one thing after the other. I thought I was going to be a social media manager. I thought I was going to be a UX UI designer, all the different things, until finally a beautiful opportunity landed in my lap working at an agency startup. Did that for another roughly 2 years before I also then questioned, what am I meant to do? So basically, my personal context here to show you that I have lived and navigated this divide for myself around questioning, who am I? What am I meant to do? Who am I meant to be in this world? But at the core and center of it all, it's this question of purpose. I had associated and made the correlation that what my job is should be my identity, and therefore should be my mission and my life's work. And so when I started feeling that lack of spark, or that drive and momentum and that inspiration started to dive down, not only was I deeply frustrated because I wasn't showing up doing what I liked every single day, but there was a deep, deep, deep distress deep down around, shit, like, well, now I don't know who I'm meant to be in this world, or what I'm meant to do. And I would say, if I was to transport and teleport myself back to those older versions of Evelina, where I was, again, just deep distressed, questioning all these things, I would tell that version of myself, take a deep breath. It is okay. And instead of looking at this next opportunity, thinking that it's going to give you that fulfillment, come back to who you are and look at what genuinely, truthfully, authentically lights you up, and what you are naturally gifted and capable of doing outside of the context of a job environment. And so this is going to transition us into the core definition of what I've ultimately landed on, and what I show and teach and walk my clients through around purpose. Is it is a way of being. It is inherently who you are and how you show up in your natural expression. And so if you think about the things that you do through your job, through your career, through your vocation, like designing, like financial advising, like teaching, right? Like any of these things that we have associated or we might connect to our purpose, these are really truly only just parts and pieces of our puzzle. Our jobs, our vocations, our careers, they're meant to be a vessel or a vehicle through which we can live our purpose. But if our jobs change, that doesn't mean that our purpose has to change. So for myself, what I have identified is, yes, I have the talents and the gifts and the abilities to design, to create beautiful work, to do something like brand strategy, to be a business owner. Are they my purpose? They're a part of my purpose, but are they at the true core and crux of what it is that I do? And so here is the ultimate question and the trick that I have really honed into for identifying this true reason for being in the world is, it's so much bigger than these things that we do. It really is the essence of who we are. And there's many questions that I get around, well, like, how do we figure out what that is? Like, how do we know? And like, what's the common thread that ties it all together? I'm going to share with you guys 2 approaches that I have honed in on for myself and that I teach my clients to help them get so crystal clear on this version, while also, and I will preface by saying, this is by no means a definitive, like, this is it, this is what I'm meant to do. I think there's a lot of pressure that's put to in like connecting with this like reason for being, or this like core why of what we do. I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and space for this to evolve and to grow, and to maybe just take a little pressure off from feeling like this is my do or die, like mission statement. And if I don't adhere or live by this, then like I am who knows what, a failure, insert whatever term that you want to call yourself, right? Like a purpose is really meant to be your guiding light and something that you come back to, especially in those times when you're questioning and confused around like, okay, what is it that I need to do next? And when we get into talking about business specifically, I'll get into very tactable, tangible examples of how leaning on your purpose could be, and not could, but actually is the thing that will help you to navigate so many uncertainties in everything that you are meant to be doing in business, in marketing, in product promotion, in showing up every single day, in growing your business, all the things, friends. Like you will find it really does come back to this core foundational piece. So identifying this core purpose for you, right? What is that? I'll start by sharing a example for myself and what that is, hopefully meant to illuminate and inspire those listening to start to think about it for themselves in this way. So if I was to zoom out and identify and speak to what my purpose is over the last, especially several years, diving in and getting so passionate and fiery about this topic, and again, asking all my beautiful clients and guests on my show, what does it mean for them? I have come to understand my purpose to be inspiring, empowering, and connecting. So these three words that I have identified for myself is what I have ultimately in this season of my life determined is my driver, is my core why, is my reason in being for showing up in the world. Inspiring, empowering, and connecting. So what are these words? How are they different from things like teaching or designing? And how do we identify them? And also, what weight do they hold truly? So for me, beyond the things that I do, again, through my profession, through my skills, through my attributes, which are the more tactical ways of doing, on a grander scheme and level, every decision that I make, everything that I put out, whether it's an Instagram post or a podcast episode, or even a decision that I make for myself, the clothes that I choose to wear, the meals that I eat and I decide to post and share with the world, are all rooted in these three words. I would say the biggest being inspiring. And how do I know that? How did I discover that for myself? Well, there's a couple questions and really tangible inquiries that you can do for yourself to help you get really clear. And the number one that I like to lean on most often is, what is the compliment that you hear time and time again from people and friends in your life? This became so clear for me in order to identify this word inspiration or inspiring for myself when I heard it being repeated time and time again by people in my life. Every time I would travel and I would share some of my personal solo adventures and trips, people would tell me, wow, Evelina, like you're so inspiring. You're doing all this stuff, you're traveling by yourself, like how do you do it, right? And so then I would share my tips, my resources, my tricks, all the things with them. Or I would share a matcha latte recipe because I just love matcha and I'm passionate about drinking it deliciously every single day. And I share my recipe and people are like, oh my gosh, this is so delicious. You inspire me, etc., etc. Anytime I do my design work or talk about a topic that, again, is really near and dear to me, like when it comes to branding or personal development, I hear, wow, you inspire me all the time and time again. It's like that word keeps coming up. And finally I realized, I'm like, this is what I do. This is who I am. This is literally who I am as a human. I'm here as a vessel of inspiration. And so no matter what it is that I'm doing, whether or not I'm working at a design job or I am flipping burgers at McDonald's, like whatever it is, that core purpose, that core driver of inspiration is the driver and the reason for being behind all that I do. And that is what I lean on. That is what I anchor into when I make any decision. When it comes to, again, we'll dive into this a little bit deeper, like any type of business decision, even when it comes to something so simple like sharing an Instagram post and I question like, what's the why am I doing this? Like, this is pointless. No one's going to listen or hear or understand this. It's like, no, I want to share this because I genuinely want to inspire other people. It's not up to me whether or not they feel inspired, but if I lead with that intentionality, then that's all I could do, right, friends? And so inspiration and then empowerment and connection have come more recently as I actually have taken myself through my own personal branding strategy process. It actually came out in this last round of my personal branding incubator that I launched back in March. I took 7 beautiful humans through a 10-week journey of coming to understand themselves through their personal brands. And as I was formulating the questions, the prompts, the inquiries, all the templates that I was, putting together for this program, I was taking myself through a lot of these questions, and I sat with the question of what is it that I'm meant to do in this world? This question of why are you here? What is your core reason for being in this world? Think and sit and reflect on those two questions, in addition to the one of what are the compliments that you hear most from people, to really help drive and give you the clarity for this purpose question that we're after. And so when I really sat with this and I thought about like, well, why am I here? Like, yeah, I could be doing design, I could be running my business, I could be working for an agency, but like, what is the whole point of it all? And ultimately I realized it's to inspire people, whether I am doing a design, whether I'm talking to someone, like it is inspiration at its core. And then around that too, I have come to really embrace empowerment and connection as two of my other purpose words, because people too, especially with this latest season of my life, leading now and teaching these personal branding workshops that took me quite a bit to ease into and finally embrace for myself. Truthfully, friends, if you've listened to the first episode of the season, you'll know like there was hesitation, there was imposter syndrome, or like, oh my gosh, am I meant to do this? But ultimately, I did do it, and I keep doing these things time and time again, whether it's working one-on-one with clients or leading groups where people leave and they have so much clarity and momentum and inspiration behind what it is that they're meant to do. And so in this way, I'm a vessel of empowerment for others, helping them connect with their purpose, seeing their light, their truth, guiding them towards connecting them to what they're meant to do in this world. So there's this energy of empowerment that really feels resonant for me. And then the word connectivity is so powerful because I have come to recognize that I am a creature of deep connection. I love the vulnerable conversations. I love the deep heart to hearts, the up all night, let's talk about your childhood traumas, like all of that stuff. And especially when I have observed myself working with my clients one-to-one, especially leading, group cohorts now, this energy of connectivity is so important to me. I think I cannot have a genuine, authentic conversation or interaction with someone if I don't feel that spark and I don't feel that connection. And I'm always after that. And I've seen it and I've embraced it as one of my gifts and really a part of my purpose that is meant to connect, whether that's me connecting with other people or connecting other people with their purpose or connecting other people with other people. There's this energy of connectivity that is so resonant and that I really love and I really lean on when it comes to a lot of the decisions I make and how I choose to live my life. And so what are the compliments that you are hearing most from people? Why are you here? What is your core reason for being in this world? Sit with these 3 questions, friends, and think about what comes up. Like really meditate on it, journal, go for a walk, like just let the answers land for you and see what comes up. And remove yourself from the jobs, remove yourself from the titles and the feelings of like, well, I'm doing this, so that means I have to do this, which actually transitions us into this next talking point, which is leveraging pain and turning it into purpose as a beautiful driver to help you get clear on what it is that you're meant to do too. A lot of people, unfortunately, we all have dealt with the lows, the sucks in our life, right? Like the universe backhands us, God will put us in these really uncomfortable situations and we're like, why the fuck is this happening, right? Like we want to, maybe we're on our bedroom floors crying, or we're just, doing the same commute every single day and just like so miserable, and we're questioning like, what's the purpose of it all and why am I here and all that stuff. And then there are those rock bottom moments where we hit and we're like, holy shit, like why? And I would say in my experience in witnessing people and just having conversations with people, there are so many of us. I'm guilty of this because there have been moments in my life where I wasn't able to maybe see the potential of an opportunity and I've squandered it, or I've played victim for too long, where something will happen, right? And then you're just like, well, woe is me. This is what's meant to happen, right? And I think for a lot of us, we've been in these moments where we don't understand what's happening, especially in these moments of suck. And victim tends to be our inclination, where again, we're questioning, we're upset, we're angry at like, why is this happening to me? And the biggest, most beautiful question that I have embraced, especially in the last several years of my life, is nothing is ever happening to you, it's happening for you. And so that little flip, that one word from 2 to 4 has so much more powerful resonance and energy around completely flipping that narrative on its head. Because if you are navigating these suck moments, right, in our lives, which we've all been through, right, but you just flip your perspective on it and you see it in a new light, the energy between this old version of like, this is so sucky, why is this happening to me, to, oh, well, maybe this is a beautiful opportunity for me to try something new or be directed on a different life path. I consider myself someone inherently glass overflowing, like overtly positive. My friends, my close people, my loved ones will tell me like, you're always so positive and you're always looking on the bright side and all that stuff. Well, it's because I am, and because I don't see any other way of living. Because even if I was to get into a car accident tomorrow, sure, it would suck. I would feel all the feels. I would cry. Hopefully I'm not in pain. Hopefully I'm still alive. But immediately my mind just tends to go with trying to understand the deeper, more beautiful lesson and reason for it all. Maybe this car accident was preventing me from going to a situation that was going to be even more worse and, life-changing and debilitating than, getting into this car accident, which hopefully was minor and didn't really cause that much injury or anything like that. Or who knows, right? And it's like, this brings me back, and we can get a little woo-woo or spiritual in this moment, because I like to go there too. But this idea of like, we don't really know all the things that are going on in our lives. We will never know. There's a higher power, whatever your belief systems are, whether you believe in God or spirit or universe or source, or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have any beliefs at all. Maybe you are staunch atheist and you're like, I don't subscribe to any of this stuff. Where I land and, where I'm rooting into is like, I deep down in my core know, trust by all means. I believe in God, and I believe that there is something so much bigger than us controlling and driving so much that we don't know and we will never understand. And it is our mission, our duty to trust it, to listen to the guidance that we are given, and to follow the steps and clues in coming back closer and remembering who it is that we are and who we're meant to be. And so when it comes to this whole idea of like, okay, we really are not in charge of our lives as much as we think that we are. Yes, we have our free will moments and all that stuff, but like higher power guiding the ship, that sentiment for me at the end of the day, in a really profound way, has given me peace in knowing no matter what, everything is going to be okay. I'm going to be supported. And I have really anchored into switching my perspective and seeing it in this beautiful light and seeing every moment as either a lesson or an opportunity. And so when it comes to purpose and when it comes to these really deep, life-changing, life-altering, painful, sucky, unfortunate things that a lot of us, all of us at one point or another have navigated, it is up to us to see it in the light that we choose to see it, right? In this light that potentially could be leveraged for our purpose. And you see this time and time again. If you think of any influencer or business owner that's successful that you followed and think about their story. A lot of people connect so deeply with the transformation story, right? Like you hear about these people who grow up broke, dead broke poor, and had no money to their name. And, maybe they were addicted to drugs and they didn't have parents in their lives, but then they completely changed their lives around, right? Like any big influencer or speaker or, whoever more than likely will share some sort of a powerful transformation story. And so why is that? What is so special about these people? What is it about the transformation story that's so powerful that wows us? The common thread and theme behind all of these people is that they have taken their pain and have turned it into their purpose. You think about someone like a holistic health coach or a practitioner. What is the core driver why they choose to become a holistic health coach and practitioner? More often than not, I actually think this, I don't know if I've heard any other story but this one. People who go into naturopathic holistic medicine turn to this more, air quotes, alternative form of medicine because the normal, again, air quotes, allopathic system has failed them. It's because they've been on so many pharmaceuticals. It's because they've seen so many doctors and the doctors kept telling them the same thing over and over again. Go on this antibiotic and, try this drug and all that. And finally they were like, no, enough is enough. They had their own personal health journey that tormented them, that who knows, maybe they were on the verge of dying at one point. But then they found this beautiful alternative path and they were like, okay, this is where I'm going to go. And so then their purpose turns into empowering and teaching and educating and supporting, again, all these beautiful purpose words. Again, it's not health coaching, it's not, nutrition counseling. It is inspiring, it is empowering, it is leading. It's these deeper words that they are leveraging and leaning on that is a result of this, we can call it unfortunate, but maybe in a different light, like beautifully fortunate life situation that they navigated, because that was exactly what they needed to go through for them to realize and to steer them on this path that they need to be on. And so if you're someone listening who, again, maybe in a rut and who is so confused around what this purpose for them looks like, or even more deeper and related to this last talking point that we're touching on, is if you are sitting with some sort of deep life crisis or moment that maybe you're currently in, maybe you're in a season of such deep suck and you're like, what the hell? Like, what is this for? How is this going to end? Or if you've navigated something in the past that maybe to date you haven't fully acknowledged, maybe it's still bearing so much weight on you where you're like, oh my gosh, I went through this really traumatic thing. I compartmentalized it. I brushed it to the side, or I just recognize like, well, this sucks, like this is what it is, kind of a thing. You embrace that mentality. Is there opportunity for you to revisit that and maybe see the beauty of why that happened to you, and how can you maybe see that situation for what it was, and how can you unearth a opportunity for a connection for your purpose? Was there anything you learned from that experience? Was there anything that completely transformed or illuminated or opened your eyes? And this, my friends, is where a very deep level of awareness needs to come, and a lot of radical honesty with yourself, because our inclination as humans and our inclination with our egos is to immediately fall into that victim mindset of like, this is happening to me and this sucks and this is just what it is. But how much are we missing when we take that perspective? Like, holy cow, again, think about these influencers, these inspirational speakers that you follow and listen to. Like, they didn't give into that ego. They didn't give into that victim. They used their suck. They literally leveraged their suck to pull them out and connect them with their success, their driver, their change, their empowerment that they're now doing and leading their lives from. So spicy little rant there around that stuff, because I've navigated this myself. I've been in the victim. I've been in the suck. And I've also have time and time again been met with these crossroads of like, what is it that I'm meant to be doing in this world, and have latched so deeply onto my identities, this like label of, oh, I'm just an architect, I'm meant to just do architecture, or I'm just graphic designer, I'm meant to do graphic design. But the more that we release these labels and we allow ourselves to go deeper and attach to the bigger picture and driver behind all that it is that we're doing, it's that essence of being. It's, I'm a person of inspiration, I'm a person of empowerment, I'm a person of connection. The more that we give ourselves freedom and liberty to embrace more than just what we do, because especially for my multi-passionates out there listening, if you didn't listen to the episode 2 episodes ago on multi-passionateness, I highly encourage you to listen to that one, because the guy goes into all of these talking points around the debilitation and anxiety that we may feel of like, holy shit, like I just need to do one thing, like I'm this person and I'm destined to just be this one thing. If we feel like we're in constant divides between so many interests and side passions and projects, this is where this like zooming out of the purpose words is even more liberating and empowering. Because for myself, I do my design work. I am a business owner. I have my podcast, but then I have so many other interests. I do health and wellness. I do travel. I blog. I have my podcast, like all these things, right? And so if I continue to think like, oh, well, my one purpose is just to do design, there's the part of me that feels like I'm neglecting all these other parts and pieces of me. Whereas if I embrace and lean into the notion of, well, my purpose is to inspire, I could inspire in any freaking single way or thing that I do. I could be doing a workout, or I could be traveling, or I could be designing or doing a podcast. And if I know that I'm leaning with that intentionality of inspiration or empowerment or connection, then there's just this liberation. There's none of this constriction and constraint or this pigeonholing energy that I feel like, well, this doesn't really go along with what I told people I'm going to be doing. Like, you just I think the core, the crux of what I'm trying to get into is zooming out, friends. Like allowing yourself to be more than what you think you need to be, and letting that be your guide, letting that be your light and your driver for your reason for being in the world. And so hopefully that explanation and the examples that I shared, for those listening, especially if you've been in distress around this whole idea of purpose, gives you a little bit of levity and a little bit of relief, we can say, around it not having to be so hard, not having to be it to be so difficult, or like a life or death sentence of like, oh my gosh, I have to do this one thing or else. It's like you could be all of it. Like, let's just root into these bigger purpose words in my process when I work with clients, because I love to use the analogy of the home as a guide for everything that we're doing. I like to call these purpose words the framing words. When you think about building a house, you put up the studs, right, to the walls that are the framing, the support system, and the structure of the house. And so these purpose words are literally meant to support everything that you do. And all of that rests on your foundation, which is you. It's your stories, it's your values, it's your gifts, because we're always coming back to that, right? And so think about these purpose words for you in this regard as like just the framing pillars, the framing studs of your life. And so when we get into the topic of business or entrepreneurship and we think about, okay, well, what is my purpose? Why is it so important to identify your purpose and what it is that you're doing? Similar to any life decisions that you're making, whether you're in debacles about posting a recipe or a workout or, your travel experiences or a recent family event that happened. When it comes to business, it's so important to get clear on your purpose too, because every decision in your business rests on your purpose and these purpose words. And I gave the example earlier around something even so we can call it little, but not, as a social media post. Whenever I go to post on social media, sometimes I'm like up there, I'm like, what the heck is the point of this? Like, is anyone going to care? Like, I will spend hours writing a caption, or I will, like curate the perfect aesthetic or the feed. And I'm like, what the heck? You know what I mean? And it's like, who freaking cares if the tone of this one post is slightly off from the color and hue of this other one next to it because it aesthetically doesn't match, and all that stuff. But time and time again, I hear people telling me and like praising me, like, Evelina, oh my gosh, everything that you share is so beautiful. Like, you inspire me so much. Like, I love looking at your feed, like all this stuff. And I'm like, damn, like it was all worth it, But the thing is, it's like, I'm not doing that with the intentionality to like give off a beautiful aesthetic so people could be impressed, right? Like, I genuinely adore beauty. Like, beauty is one of my top values, and aesthetically pleasing things, design aesthetic, like all of these things, like they light me up, they fulfill me. When I see beauty, I know it, I recognize it, I have this gift. And so when I'm spending maybe an hour too long on my one Instagram post, I'm doing it because I genuinely am so passionate about it. The beautiful end result is people reflecting back to me that like, oh, I'm inspiring them by everything looking so beautiful. And so that example that I just shared hopefully illuminates for you too, friends, the idea that, these purpose words, these things that we're after, they never are meant to be so heavy or exhausting, right? Like, when I do these things, when I share my matcha latte recipe, or even if I do exhaust myself sometimes from the Instagram posts and all that, I do it because I genuinely, in my core, do it because I want to and I love it. And the end result is this beautiful reactivity from my people, knowing that I am a vessel of inspiration because I'm encouraging them or empowering them to try the matcha, or maybe be a little bit more intentional with like the things they put out, whatever that is. And so when it comes to, again, maybe something so small as doing an Instagram post, if you are doing it with the intentionality of, one, yes, it's lighting you up for yourself, but two, coming back to these words and questioning like, no, I'm doing this because it's worth it to me. And at the core of it, there's an energy of inspiration that I want to share with the world. Or when I'm having a discovery call with a new client and I'm leading with that idea of, connectivity, right? Like, connectivity is part of my purpose, my driver, my reason for being in the world. I lead with that energy of like, I just want to have a heart-to-heart connection with this person. Like, and this is especially too where I have recognized, yes, there's a level of professionalism, especially when it comes to leading business, that I feel like we all absolutely have to have. But a lot of times for me, like, the overtly professional persona, it feels so stuffy and constricting that like, let's just freaking be a human for 1 second and like talk about what you had for breakfast this morning. Or like, if you were in a rock bottom, like tell me about how you cried on your bedroom floor. You know what I mean? And so reminding myself of those things, but anchoring deeper into that core driver, that word of connectivity, connects me deeper with my purpose, and honestly just dispels all those like lingering thoughts of like, who cares? No one's going to see this. This is not for, whatever, the imposter syndrome thoughts, all of that, right? We've all navigated those, friends. So those examples that I share, when it relates to business and any decision that we make, you can think about an email newsletter, a product that we put out, a service that we put out. Let's come back to those framing words. Let's come back to those core drivers and reasons for being in our lives and our worlds, and really use them as leverage for why we're doing what we're doing. And just like feel the lightness, feel the relief that comes in when you know like, oh, well, if I know that my purpose is to inspire, then like I'm doing this from a place of inspiration. So hopefully this episode and these talking points that I've shared around purpose, for those listening, gives everyone a little bit of relief, especially if you're someone who's navigated a lot of pressure or feelings of confusion around this. It really doesn't have to be so hard at the end of the day. And those questions around, what do people come to you for? What are the compliments that you receive most? Asking yourself, why are you here? Even going so far as like taking a intensive or just like overarching view of your life. And sure, you can even look at things like your jobs and the professions that you work, but go deeper and think about the interactions that you've had with people, the things that genuinely light you up, that bring you joy. What are the core drivers and themes behind all that stuff? What are the words? Are they education, empowerment, illumination, connection, creation? These bigger, deeper, richer words that can so beautifully and simply link so many seemingly disconnected pieces together. Like, what's to say that I think I talked about it in the last episode, like you're a mom, but you're also a full-time financial guru, but then you also run marathons. Like, what's to say that all three of those seemingly separate things can't actually be so similar in the way that you show up, in the way that you lead through your mission and your purpose? These purpose words, these framing words. So my homework and we could say little encouragement for you, friends, listening today to this episode, is to really sit with and try to identify those, let's say three. Three is a really solid base foundational number we could lean on. Those three foundational framing words for you that you can leverage, yes, in your business, especially if you're a business owner, but beyond business, just in life in general. Any decision that you make, a buying decision, a travel decision, a decision, where you're going to advise someone, like this could be translated into so many facets of your life. And so homework, come up with 3 framing words. If you're following along and you want to share, send them my way, because I love hearing people's feedback and reactivity to all this stuff, because you guys know this stuff lights me up absolutely. So let me know, friends. I would absolutely love to hear. So with this all being said, I think we can put a bow on this conversation for today. It was a spicy one, my favorite topic ever, all things purpose. If you have questions, if you want to know more, if you need help or support one-on-one, or just like a conversation of, wait, okay, I think I know what it is, or I might need some guidance, let's talk about it. Again, I love talking about this stuff. And if you want to dive even deeper, again, I've been plugging it on every episode. The Homecoming 12-week personal branding cohort. Next cohort launches September 3rd. If you are someone who's been tuning into this season, listening into all things personal branding, and are so curious on diving deeper and wanting to know more about connecting to your purpose, about identifying what that is, about starting that business venture that's been on your heart, or if you are a business entrepreneur or solopreneur, how do you build your business and position it in a way that reflects and embodies more of who you are? This is the mastermind for you, friends. We're kicking off September 3rd. I would love to have you. If you're someone who feels like an aligned human, reach out to me. Let me know. As always, the link to the waitlist is going to be dropped in the show notes, so you can get on that list there. Your email will be added to a lovely little subscription, and I'll just keep you in the loop on any updates that come up in the next month, because really we're less than a month away. So we're gearing up to it, and I'm so excited. So thank you again for tuning in, for listening. And if any of this resonated, let me know, and I will see you all next week, friends. Thank you so much. Hi again, it's me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you were able to garner some takeaways and nuggets for your personal home journey. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world if you left a rating and review. And if you'd like to connect deeper, find me at Studio Dumpka on Instagram, where I share content on all things home, of course. Sending a big, cozy, homey hug your way, friends. Till next time.